Saturday morning, and the citadel of Welsh rugby awaits the start of another season of internationals. Fans gather with hopes high of more glory. And few are more excited than the man seen by many as the face and voice of Welsh rugby.
Long day today, into Millennium Stadium now. First game of the autumn series. First international for Wales against Argentina. Tough game, and a tough autumn series for the Welsh.
A rugby genius, Jonathan Davies enjoyed a roller coaster career in the media spotlight. The quick-witted, cheeky playmaker at number 10. The code breaker who turned professional for a world record fee. The history maker as the first to return to Union. The TV presenter and respected commentator whose sharp analysis makes headlines.
Hello, yeah, good.
Welsh rugby fans recognise and often react to Jonathan wherever he goes. A walking one-man brand.
One of the best fly-halves we've ever had.
He had the creative ability to make things happen from nothing.
He's always Welsh through and through, and even sometimes, even when there isn't light at the end of the tunnel, he sees it, and he makes me smile, I have to say.
He led the way into reality, where you need the money.
He's loved, genuinely loved.
He makes me feel a bit homesick, actually, when I watch him, because it's that really deep Welsh rooted thing.
For the first time, Jonathan talks in depth about life off the pitch, about twice losing loved ones to cancer, of his personal battles to prove himself, his drive to carve a new career, and how his family is his greatest achievement. And underpinning all this success is his upbringing in the small West Wales village of Trimsaran.
Wherever I've been all over the world, I regard myself as being 100% Welsh, and you know, I'm born and bred in Trimsaran, and I love being Welsh, and I'm proud of being Welsh, and I love the country and the people, and I'm a Trimsaran boy through and through.
Trimsaran lies on the outskirts of Llanelli, just over the hill from the old Scarlet's ground at Stradey Park. The village looks out on the modern Ffos racecourse, built over the old open-cast mine, where many in Trimsaran used to work. This is Fly Half Country, an area fabled as a factory for producing some of the most skillful and exciting rugby stars the world has ever seen. Barry John, Phil Bennett, and the one that broke the mould, the double code breaker, Jonathan Davies. As these boys practice, dreaming of maybe one day playing for Wales, 40 years ago, a young Jonathan was here, doing exactly the same thing. Under the expert tuition of ex-Cardiff and Scarlet's hooker Marion Davies, Jonathan and other local schoolboys enjoyed their first structured rugby coaching and the discipline that went with it.
He hated kicking, so even when we were stuck being our own line, we couldn't kick, and if we kicked, he'd send me off or something like that. So, but also the fact that he said if you don't do your homework, you can't play. And then with Marion's coaching, we became quite a well-known school because we had great success in 7s and in 15s.
I remember Jonathan as a very young pupil at Trimsaran School, and he had this exceptional natural flair for sport, and especially rugby. He had amazing skills, and he would perform on the rugby field. He seemed to have a great deal of time when he was playing, very confident, and he had the pace and acceleration of an athlete, and he was quite outstanding.
Born in the front room of his grandmother's house in Trimsaran, Jonathan and his family, his mother Diana, father Len and sister Caroline, were part of the fabric of the community, with the rugby club and rugby at its heart.
The 71 Lions tour, I would have been 9, and because there were no television pictures in those days, I remember going to a pub called the Miners' Arms and listening to the game on radio in the Miners' Arms like 2 o'clock in the morning with my dad.
Jonathan's father, Len, who worked as a buyer at Trostra Steelworks, was a quick and skillful player himself at the Scarlets before captaining Trimsaran, where he set up a youth side, naturally, with a young Jonathan in mind. While extremely close as father and son, Len was still competitive with Jonathan in sport or games. He didn't give an inch.
We used to have races, because when in Kemshie Dunbeach, you know, the tide goes out, it does go out. It's in China, I think, to be honest. So when we used to go into the sea, we used to walk about 3 miles to get into the sea, and then walk back. And then on the way back, we used to have a race. My mum, my dad, and my sister and me. And I never beat my dad racing, so it was quite competitive, really. And also, I think everything we played, you know, I had to deserve to win. There was nothing like, oh yeah, I'll give him that, even drafts.
But in 1974, when Jonathan was 12, Len was diagnosed with liver cancer and had to be treated in Cambridge, where he was one of the first to receive a transplant. At great cost and effort, but with friends and rugby club support, the family visited him regularly, not knowing if the pioneering operation would be a success.
I stood in the lift, and my dad came to say bye-bye, and my sister, and I remember him waving at the lift, and I'm thinking he was in his dressing gown, his pyjamas, and he was on the drip at the time. And I'm thinking, like, you know, he's waving, saying bye-bye, whether I'd ever see him live again. So that kind of stuck with me, you know, through everything, really. So that's the one vivid recollection I have of the whole whole illness. The operation was successful, and you know, he came home. We had, you know, another summer. I remember then, you know, he was, you know, played again. We went down Kemshie Dunbeach, and life became as normal as we possibly could. But unfortunately, there was secondary cancer, and it spread to his stomach, and then he died a couple of years later.
At this time, Jonathan was a 14-year-old teenager at Gwendraeth Grammar School.
Mr. Pierce came walking down the corridor, and I could see him walking past. And as soon as he opened the door, I kind of sensed that something wasn't right, because during lunchtime, I'd accidentally pushed a kid through a window playing football, and I thought, you know, he's going to come and give me a row. But I think as soon as he walked in the door, he asked for my name, I kind of realised straight away that my dad had passed away. I didn't cry when I was told. I didn't cry in the car when my uncle drove me home. As soon as I got to the house, my mum answered the door. I started crying then. So, but no, it wasn't the pressure of actually taking responsibility. I just felt that, you know, I was the only boy in the house, and I just had to toughen up a little bit. So, and it was kind of, my attitude changed towards life then, I suppose.
The loss of his father at an early age still shapes in many ways the Jonathan of today. Jiffy, as he's known by many of his friends and colleagues, remains, like his father, a tough competitor. It's a quality that's driven him through his amazing playing career into a second career in broadcasting.
Jiffy's a tough cookie. You know, he's not huge, but his mental alertness, awareness, capability has pushed him in all areas, whether it be rugby or life away from rugby, and helped him.
Underneath that mild, affable outer, deep inside is a real competitive animal in there, and I said that with the most utmost respect.
In the press rooms of the Millennium Stadium, Jonathan joins other familiar faces from the world of Welsh rugby, now working in the media. Over the years, many former international players have turned TV pundit, come and then gone, under television's unforgiving bright lights. But Jonathan's popularity has not only endured, it's grown.
I call him King John in Wales because, you know, the only thing that is missing is rose petals thrown down in front of where he walks. And I think when I walk around Cardiff with him, he's loved, genuinely loved, and he deserves it. He's worked hard.
So whether player or broadcaster, union or league, Jiffy has appeared on our screens as a regular Saturday afternoon fixture for nearly 30 years. He's become Britain's Mr. Rugby. But back in the late 70s, thoughts of the limelight were a far-off dream as the loss of Len and his income hit home.
You know, when my dad did pass away, you know, my mum had to go to work and, you know, try and pass a test, take me to rugby matches, and, you know, even sometimes, you know, my sister was younger than me by 2 years, so, you know, we used to play a game where we used to hide from, you know, Mr. Landy, and Mr. Landy was the rent man because we didn't have enough money to pay the rent. So, looking back at it, it's amazing, but, you know, I suppose it's those kind of things that keeps it real.
During the sickness and after the death of his father, the rugby club wrapped around the family with fundraising and emotional support.
We all gather around. Anything like that happens, it's a tragedy, especially for the family, and you just do as much as you can. I was just a young player at the time, but I remember the whole committee then and the whole members, they all got together. And it's probably like every village in Wales, the rugby club is an integral part of that, and we all gather around and do as much as you can.
We needed their help, you know, they were absolutely, you know, fantastic. So, you know, I remember one thing when I played for Wales, I always wanted to say, like, you know, from where you're from, I wanted trimsaran's name on the programme. It meant a lot to me, and you know, I don't live there, don't go back there very often. I'm still proud to say, you know, I'm born and bred in Trimsaran.
But at 17, Jonathan hit a crossroads when one night his district school side was playing at the same time as the village youth team his father had set up. He had to choose between the two. He went with Trimsaran youth team, but paid for his loyalty. Offers to join the Welsh schoolboy system were then withdrawn. He never played for his country at schoolboy level. At odds with the school and with few qualifications, he left to work in the local open-cast mine. At this time, Jonathan's mother Diana remarried. Ken Williams was another Trimsaran man who was recently widowed and, as a stepfather, became very supportive of Jonathan's career, which was soon on the move. In his first season with Trimsaran senior team, Jonathan was spotted by Neath and given a game.
The bus full of us went up from the club. Tuesday night, wet night in the Knoll. And at the end of the game, on the march was number 10 for Neath, Jonathan Davies.
In 1983, soon after joining Neath, Jonathan married his school sweetheart Karen, and with the club's help, he left the open-cast mine to join a painting and decorating company, which backed his rugby. These were the days of the amateur game. Top players needed sympathetic employers to release them for training and matches. So supported at home and work, and under the guidance of rugby giants Brian Thomas and coach Ron Waldron, at Neath, Jonathan's talents flourished. It's also where he got his nickname, Jiffy. Of all his skills, Jiffy was amazingly quick.
Moyak with a feed deep inside the Bridgend 22. Jonathan Davies, will he go for another dramatic try? Oh, it's a textbook try, and exactly the same type of try that he scored against Bath.
Oh God, this guy's got something different, because he had pace, basically. That's the big thing that stands out in any player, I think, more than anything else, more than size or more than sidestep very often, is somebody with genuine pace, and he had that. And I remember seeing a few of his early games with Neath where, you know, he really made an impact, scored some lovely tries, made some good breaks, and he was a real, you know, cheeky chappy of an individual, I think, at 10, and he was obviously bound to make an impact in the game.
There is no substitute for pace. I also worked at it because in the early days, I got athletics coach to work on my acceleration and reaction time. And I did a lot of endurance running as well, so once I did make the break, I was very lucky that I had the acceleration to get away from people as well.
Jonathan was soon pushing for a Welsh place, and in 1985, fate paved the way. Welsh team selection for number 10 was in disarray. They left the position blank, naming another in the lineup. Insulted, the incumbent Gareth Davies resigned.
I sort of heard a whisper that the Welsh team to play England in the last game of the 85 season was going to be announced on the Thursday, and the number 10 position was going to be another. And I can imagine a sort of basically an insult, really, in many ways. And I rang the chairman of selectors and said, well, if that were the case, I'd heard this rumour, if that were the case, then basically count me out.
Jonathan, who'd been on the bench for the previous French match, was suddenly in pole position against the English in Cardiff.
To play for Wales against England, Cardiff Arms Park in a debut, that's what dreams are made of. But I was so nervous. I remember singing the national anthem thinking about my dad. My mum was in the stand just thinking about my dad and how proud he would have been.
If the English thought he was the weak link, the boyish-looking, naive new cap who they could easily intimidate, they had another thing coming.
Didn't know a lot about him going into the game, but you know he was very confident. I think he gave me a cheap shot early on, which is a good sign that he was confident. I had Winterbottom trying to sort him out, but I don't think Peter could get close to him.
Oh, he spun it well. What a good kick.
I was never intimidated by any opposite flanker. In fact, I verbally spoke to them all the time. In fact, I remember, tripping Peter Winterbottom once when he was going for a loose ball, and he was like infuriated. But if he got hold of me, well, I was in big trouble. But that's the way I played.
I mean this in the right way. He's probably quite cocky in terms of a player, and I mean that in the sense of confidence.
Neck and neck with the English, fate again smiled on the first cap fly half when a wayward kick came good.
It was such a bad kick that I chased it out of embarrassment, to be honest. And the pressure that I put on Chris Martin, the full-back, somehow he dropped it. And I dived on it. And that was a try, and we won the game a little bit more comfortably than we should have.
At the end of a poor season, Jiffy had given the fans something to smile about.
I swapped shirts with him either in the tunnel area or in the as we came off, and he said, "Oh, I'll bring you mine in a minute into the dressing room." And players went into each other's dressing rooms to swap shirts, and he came in and had this Welsh shirt rolled up and gave it to me and said, "Well done, see you later at the dinner," sort of thing. And I just put it in my bag. Never thought about it. And it was only when I got home and opened it up and it had number 16 on the back of it. So he'd obviously kept his own number 10, and he must have nicked the reserve shirt off whoever number 16 was and gave it to me.
Well, not cheeky, kind of pessimistic, thinking, no, I might not play for Wales again, and I don't want to swap my first ever Welsh jersey. But I wanted an English jersey as well. So, and I remember Rob never mentioned anything. Rob was a gentleman. Until years later, I did the programme This Is Your Life, and he mentioned it then that how I'd conned him with the jersey.
Over the following seasons, with Robert Jones as a new scrum half partner, Jiffy helped spark a Welsh rugby revival.
As soon as I met Jonathan, we sort of clicked. We became fairly close friends very quickly. He's that type of guy.
On it comes to David Young, the young mobile prop from Swansea.
There was an occasion where he had the ball, run round Mickey Skinner. He was desperately keen to get hold of him, but obviously didn't have the speed to get hold of him. And Jonathan, typically, as he was running around him, just shouted back, "Dabo," which is ta-ta or bye-bye in Welsh.
To Jonathan Davies, the switch of attack, being chased by Skinner. Ring is on the far side. If Jonathan Davies can give the ball to Ring now. Tony Clement in front of his man. Ring looking back inside for Paul Moriarty, finding the man, Collins to Rob Norster, the pass out to Brendan Bowen back inside to Adrian Hadley. Is he going to get his second try? Hadley's going to make it, the second try for Adrian Hadley, and all of Wales at Twickenham erupts.
One of the differences between then and now, I think, is that I don't think they have the footballing ability, the awareness, or able to read a rugby game like the players I had inside me.
10-0 down against Scotland in 1988, and time to pull something out of the hat.
And so real pressure on the Welshman here.
I think the main thing for me was to get the ball into Jonathan's hands, because he had the creative ability to make things happen from nothing. So you know, I'd always worked on a reverse pass.
He did exceptionally well to get the pass out to me, and then because the ball was high, we couldn't, you know, I couldn't pass it along the line. I acted instinctively to step my left foot, but then I had no idea what was going to happen after that.
Oh, good reverse pass, Jonathan Davies. There's that acceleration. Very, very quick. Back goes Derek White. The try is scored. Wonderful try by Davies. Can you believe it?
Losing in the mud in the final match to the French prevented a clean sweep, a grand slam. Nevertheless, it was the best performance by Wales for nearly a decade, with Jonathan the star attraction.
I remember being on the Wogan show, which was like prime time TV, and I appeared with Samantha Fox, page 3 model, so it's kind of surreal, you know, coming from, because I still lived in West Wales.
Welcome, Jonathan Davies.
But this celebrity status wasn't matched by money, and Jonathan was always wary of being one bad injury away from financial oblivion. Media speculation was rife that for financial security, he was about to turn professional.
Now, what about rugby league? Because before the World Cup last year, it was rumoured that you were going to take the money and run.
Well, you know, if somebody comes along and offers you a lot of money, you have to sit down and think about it.
Have they come along with offered you a lot of money? What sort of money would they offer you?
Well...
Tell him not to be so nosy.
Yeah, that's right, Di.
They never had any money, and the security was big in his life, or the lack of security had been big all his life. And coming from a council house in trimsaran, a comfortable life, but nevertheless no embellishments. And once you then thrust to the very top of the public adulation, you realise that there's nothing else coming with it. If you're as good as people say you are, well, where are the rewards?
Even today, and despite his success and wealth, Jonathan's need for financial security drives him on. Here in the City of London, the money heart of the world, he's out to make an impact. At the top of the iconic Gherkin Tower, executives gather to make deals, to network, or simply socialise. After some business meetings of his own, the guest speaker is on his way.
I had a meeting in London today as well, so it's one of these things that, you know, people think I've only got a Saturday job, but, you know, I've got other things as well. Someone asked me to speak at a company called Critical Eye with all CEOs of, you know, global companies. So it's just Christmas drinks. The guy's a Welshman. There's a few Welshmen here who I know from a variety of banking establishments and other businesses.
So on that note, I will pass across humbly to Jonathan Davies, who is a legend. That's the best applause I've ever had in England, to be honest, so thank you very much. I won't keep you long, because I know you all want to dance as well, so... I'm from a small village in West Wales.
Jonathan is quick to talk about his upbringing, where he's from. He's proud of it, and doesn't forget to help those who've helped him.
Financially, he supports us. And when he comes down. This year now, funny enough, well, next season, sorry, you'll see the 25th anniversary of the Jonathan Davies Sevens. Huge tournament, youth tournament, yeah. And he's been down a couple of times. Obviously, with his work commitments, he finds it difficult. But he still, you know, yeah, still supports the Sevens as well.
For the current generation, Jonathan works as a role model, a skills ambassador, promoting apprenticeships to companies and helping to inspire in people a strong work ethic.
The reason I became skills ambassador, because I left school at 16, I think it was, and no idea what I wanted to do. And all of a sudden I was offered an apprenticeship as a painter decorator. And what it did was, it gave me a great work ethic.
He doesn't have a barrier. He doesn't ever see the fact that he can't do something. And from contacting someone, picking up the phone, making a contact, speaking to someone on a plane, he brings it all back. He doesn't have any fear, which is just, you know, exactly what he should be doing. So to have our learners look up to him, thinking they can do the same. So an inspiration to people here.
Whether it be handing out awards to achieving apprentices or handing out new rugby shirts and teaching technique to aspiring rugby stars of the future, Jonathan always advocates a professional attitude. And he was advocating the same 20 years ago as a player, but the Welsh Rugby Union refused to listen. During the disastrous summer tour to New Zealand in 1988, the All Blacks were in a different league, both on and off the pitch. Professional in all but name, professional in an amateur game.
They were getting paid for advertising, they were driving around in sponsored cars, they were doing TV interviews, etc. Whereas in Wales, we weren't allowed to do that. If we did interviews for the TV, the money would go to the WRU. We were just professionally way behind them.
And on the pitch, they knew how to beat the Welsh. They had identified the main threat.
Stop Jonathan Davies and we'll beat the Welsh. And that's the regard that we held him in.
But Jonathan's rugby genius still came through. On return home, Jonathan and other leading players wanted to speak to the whole Welsh Rugby Union, to call for changes, to at least get them on the same level as the All Blacks. Their request was denied.
I've obviously spoken to Jonathan a lot about that tour and rugby in general, and you know, he's a proud Welshman, and he wanted to deliver. And I think he came away from that game thinking we need to be like the All Blacks in terms of the professional approach on and off the field, the way we prepare ourselves. And that's what he wanted. It's probably ahead of his time. You know, probably the Welsh rugby wasn't ready for that yet.
It's ironic because 15 years later, when they employ Graham Henry and Steve Hansen, they said exactly the same that I was going to say 15 years earlier. We had to have facilities, we have to have a better professional attitude, nutrition, you know, that's all. And that's all I was going to say. But we had to pay Graham Henry £1 million or whatever they paid, and if they'd have listened to Bob Nostra and myself from our experiences in New Zealand, then they would have changed those things. But I tried. I was just disappointed that, you know, things weren't going to change.
Things went from bad to worse when the Welsh team was further unsettled with the sacking of the coaches. For the following Romania match, Jonathan was made captain. But it was an embarrassing defeat, and he took the blame. No one spoke to him the following Monday at training. Rugby league scouts were always circling. Now Widnes caught Jonathan at a low ebb.
I wasn't happy. I was getting, you know, I got blamed for that defeat. And then all of a sudden, the unthinkable, you know, came into my mind that I was going to get dropped playing for Wales. You know, I got no qualifications to fall back on. That's when the rugby league boys came down, and there was an avenue up for me. And I enjoyed living in Wales. I enjoyed playing for Llanelli, and I enjoyed playing for Wales. And the last thing on my mind was, you know, I was thinking of walking away from it. But I remember bumping into my my surgeon, and he said, "I heard you're thinking of going to rugby league," and he said, "Make the most of that knee."
His ambition at that time was to play for the Lions. And he knew that the team was being thought of by Ian McGeechan, who'd just been appointed the coach. And he thought, I'm going to get dropped by Wales as captain, and that's not going to help my Lions candidature. And then Dougie Lawton, a very persuasive man who was coach of Widnes, came down and caught him on the hop.
The headlines tonight: the Welsh Rugby Union captain Jonathan Davies has joined the Rugby League champions Widnes. The deal is worth around £250,000 and makes Davies the sport's most highly paid player.
Finally, he signed and shocked the rugby world of both codes, not only for the size of the deal, but also that Rugby League had captured the Welsh captain, the star. In Wales, he was brandished an outcast, a traitor by the Welsh media and many fans.
I'm going back home on tomorrow morning with a couple of videos and a rule book. So, you know, I'm glad I'm not playing, and to see what Dougie feels, how I go in training, and it's up to him then. You know, I don't want to live in Wales and commute up. You know, sooner better I get up here and settle in.
Excitement would be the word, because a signing of a really big, well-known rugby union player was a shot in the arm for the game in those days. And Jonathan, of course, was one of the biggest names in British rugby.
But there were doubts whether he was big enough or tough enough to survive a more brutal brand of rugby.
I drove up with Ken, his stepfather, and Jonathan, and he sat in the back and he was very apprehensive. And news of his arrival had got around. And we parked the car and there were people peering from all over the place. And they were coming up and they were looking at him because they couldn't believe, you know, a superstar you expect to see a man monster step out of the car. And Jonathan is quite slight. He bulked up a lot after that, but he was quite slight. And they were running, he had a wonderful aquiline nose, and they were running their fingers down the bridge of his nose and saying, "That won't last long."
At his first match for Widnes, Jonathan quickly showed his worth, putting an extra 6,000 on the gate.
Tremendous attention still from photographers who've come from all around the world to see Jonathan Davies this afternoon.
And now the moment the crowd have come for, as Jonathan Davies gets his first taste of rugby league action in a Widnes shirt. And I don't think you'd have got a better reception at the Arms Park. The crowd are really hoping it gets into Davies' hands, and it has at long last. But he sets off. Jonathan Davies going down the wing. It's a sensational start for the Welshman. He's bundled into touch, but he pleased the crowd with that.
He wasn't in the game much. You wouldn't expect that. But what he did, some lovely touches. But the thing I looked at, one or two people were saying to me, "Oh, Ray's not big enough. He's not big enough. Look at his legs, Ray. You know, a little bit like a pigeon, Ray. He's not big enough." He had character. He had guts. He had heart. And that's what it takes to play this game. It is a very skillful game, but it is a very physical game.
Jonathan set about beefing himself up, proving the doubters wrong, determined to succeed.
People will not appreciate how tough it is to go into rugby league. You know, you're giving up your family, you know, you're moving away, you go into a different job, totally different job, because the game is totally different, and it's all been done in the public eye, and failure is a massive story for the press. So it's, you know, there's a mental toughness to it, and you know, I wasn't prepared to fail.
Jonathan was followed by an exodus of fellow players from the Welsh international side.
Jonathan really was the person who started the trend that left us really with many of our top players deciding to go north, and it was a case of having to rebuild.
Well, floodgates, wasn't it? You know, there's loads of players went. I mean, there was Jonathan, obviously came after myself, then John Devereux, Paul Moriarty, Kevin Ellis, David Young, Alan Bateman, the Quinnells.
With old friends around him, financial security for his family, Jonathan quickly found his feet and soon began putting in some startling performances.
Davies, the shimmy, beats two men, he likes to go himself, the sidestep, together, he's going for the line, he's back to Davies, that's magnificent movement, a genius of a rugby player.
You had to watch him every second because he had such incredible acceleration. He wasn't the biggest of guys, but he was very, very explosive, and his stride length was very, very long, and his speed off the mark and his footwork was very, very difficult to defend against. So you had to keep your eye on him all the time, otherwise he'd punish you.
Within 18 months of turning professional, Jonathan had won with Widnes 2 premierships, 2 charity shields, a World Championship medal and 5 Great Britain caps, as well as Player of the Year. More importantly, and remarkably, he was relatively unscathed. Even his nose was still intact, but only just.
Oh, what a head tackle! But significantly, Davies has scored.
And when Widnes ran low on money, Jonathan switched to nearby Warrington, where he won the coveted Man of Steel and another First Division Player of the Year.
I think rugby league got a genuine star, a big star, one of the best players ever to have come in the game, to my mind.
Have a look at that! What a try! What a genius!
A player who could light up a dark day. He could light up a November afternoon just with one touch, with one ball, with one little kick.
Whether in the white of Widnes or the stripes of Warrington, his creative and instinctive brilliance shone through, seeing opportunities and acting instantly when other players saw nothing. He displayed consummate kicking skills. At goal, downfield, and especially the chip ahead at full flight. He could body swerve as well as step off either foot at speed. And of course, he had a burst of acceleration and blistering pace to destroy any defence. And behind this tremendous talent was solid support.
Everyone who is successful, I think that, you know, there is a support mechanism behind you, and whether that's coaches, employers, friends, but more so family. Karen and the family were a great support, and without that support, you know, I don't think you can achieve what you try and achieve, to be honest, because that support mechanism is vitally important.
Most players would have settled for his success, but not Jiffy. In the out-of-season break, he decided to play in Australia, the hardest and most brutal rugby league in the world, where few from Britain had dared to venture. But he was undaunted. He'd learnt to look after himself.
I'd never admit that I was like nasty, I suppose, but I think you have to have an edge. I think you need an edge. If you look at all, maybe the best sportsmen in the world, you know, they all look after themselves, and I just think that I knew how to look after myself from my upbringing.
With his family following him in support all the way to Sydney, he joined the Canterbury Bulldogs and was now playing rugby 12 months a year. He was quickly dubbed by the Aussie press the Welsh Wizard.
In Australia, rugby league's it's a huge sport. It's a working class sport, so even now, what he's done is probably pretty unique, because not many people have actually made both sports. They do revere him a lot.
Gets around Michael Egar, gets around Andrew Johns, gets around Paul Harrigan, gets around Robbie O'Davis, Jonathan Davis. Davis for the line, 15 to go. He's going to score the try. That is a sensational individual try from Jonathan Davis.
Within only 3 years of turning professional, Jonathan was captaining the Great Britain side, a great honour, showing the high regard the top league professionals had for this Union convert from Wales. But it is the last of his 11 caps for Great Britain, which was probably his greatest, in a packed Wembley in 1994. Led by Sean Edwards, the GB team was taking on a mighty Australian side.
Bradley Clyde stepped inside of me, was about to score a try, and I stuck my arm out, and certainly did miss, put it that way.
He's got Etchinghausen also. Oh, that was a high tackle. The red card has gone in the air, and sensation here.
I went off, and the guys came in. They were all pumped up, and I didn't realise that I'd scored. And then everyone said, "Oh, we're winning." Jonathan scored a try. We're 8-4 up.
1, it's Wembley. It's 2, it's the Ashes. 3, you're playing against maybe one of the best sides ever in rugby league. So putting it all together, maybe, yeah, it was my finest moment.
That's to Davis. Davis, he's got some space. He's going for the corner. He's got his head back. And the Welshman is in.
Oh, nice and Doyle. Gonna cower trimsaran.
I can never thank him enough, and every time I see him, I always remind him of, you know, basically he saved my backside that day.
The only reason my career kicked on was because I scored that try in Wembley. But I was going to retire, and coming to the end of your playing days, you know, then it's a big decision on when to retire and what you're going to do and what you're capable of doing, because, you know, you've been a professional sportsman. So I was in a quandary of what I was going to do, and then what you know, overshadowed all that was that my wife, you know, was diagnosed with cancer. And at the time, you know, I had 3 kids, and two of my daughters were born up in Warrington. And then all of a sudden, you know, the priority was family. What did I want to do? I just wanted to come back to Wales to be near my family and have the support of the family, you know, during this period.
But there was no way back to Wales as a player. The game was still amateur there. It seemed he had to retire and look at other options, while at the same time keeping his wife's cancer diagnosis a secret, to protect the family from the ever-present prying media. Then suddenly, the unthinkable happened. In August 1995, the rugby world turned on its head as Union became professional and Cardiff came looking for Jiffy.
Former Welsh rugby international Jonathan Davies says he may return to Wales to play rugby union now that the game has turned professional. It's believed many league players could be tempted back following the decision by the International Rugby Board to allow players to be paid.
A few weeks later, and Jonathan arrived back in Cardiff, the first in history to sign south, the first player ever to sign back to Union from League. All the Welsh exiles who'd gone north could potentially come home for good.
I was quite excited by signing Jonathan for a number of reasons. Obviously, I hugely respected him as a rugby player, and thinking that coming back would be of great advantage to Cardiff and to Welsh rugby. Secondly, it sort of underlined Cardiff's ambition, if you like, in terms of, hang on, we're serious, the game is now professional, and we want to make a statement, and there probably wasn't a stronger statement at the time. In signing Jonathan, and the fact that he was the first player to reverse a century's trends of going the other way.
Karen could now be treated at Velindre, Cardiff's specialist cancer hospital.
I remember talking to this guy, and he said, "Oh, you know, because you sat in the waiting room with people, and you know, with their family and friends, and you say, oh, you know, if you got cancer, and or is it you one of your families?" And I remember this guy telling me, "No, I haven't got cancer." He said, "Cancer's got me." And it's weird. That's stuck in my mind, and I think that it's just, you know, you survive it or you don't survive it, and there's no kind of happy medium. I learned a lot, you know, from my dad's experience, but it's amazing how you cope, and I think that you just got to be as normal as you possibly can. You know, your priority changes, and your kids are first and foremost. And it was, you know, I kept on playing, then come home, and then forget about rugby, and then go back into family life. So it's, yeah, it was very, very tough, but you know, things that you know, you do what's best for everyone at that particular time.
And now that little moment of history, Jonathan Davies steps back onto a rugby union field, bought by a union club from a professional club.
But Jonathan appeared an isolated figure. Fellow players seemed to resent his special financial package and didn't seem to pass him the ball.
Yeah, I'd be disappointed if I felt that they did do that. I never felt that they did, because I would never do it. You know, it's a team environment, and if I come into better the team, well, you know, they should have used me. At the time, yeah, you know, again, I was a target for, you know, the opposition, so it made sense, really, to use me as a dummy runner and, you know, exploit the spaces outside. Maybe they overdid that a little bit, but, you know, I just want to enjoy myself and play, you know, the remaining days of my rugby career out in Cardiff, enjoying it. And I was, you know, grateful for the opportunity to come home.
As well as the strain of caring for Karen, looking after his children and playing, Jonathan was under tremendous public and media pressure to be the saviour of Welsh rugby. Despite everything, it was a challenge and an honour he couldn't refuse.
I didn't really want to play for Wales again, to be honest, but, you know, do you ever turn down playing for your country? No, you don't. You know, I was a lot slower, and I couldn't give to Wales what I gave maybe 10 years before, but you know, there's no higher honour than playing for your country, and, you know, I enjoyed the experiences, but, you know, I was past my best then, and but it was nice to, you know, to play for Wales again and have that adrenaline rush of actually, you know, going out on the Arms Park. It was unbelievable.
A dozen years after first playing for Wales, Jonathan had come full circle to represent his nation in Union again. But it was short-lived. Just a few caps before his final international against the old enemy England and old friends in Cardiff. Despite some memorable moments, Jonathan couldn't save Wales. They were well beaten. With his magical powers on the wane, maybe it was time to hang up his boots.
It was the last ever international at the old Arms Park before it got knocked down and turned around and rebuilt. And I've got this photograph of Jonathan, myself and Will at the end of the game, and I'm pretty certain that it was the last international for all three of us, and it was the last ever game of international rugby at the Old Arms Park, so it was one level a pretty special moment. He's under the cosh, either on the field or off the field, because you know what it's like, and it's a pretty tough place to be, and I think sometimes you just want to say, look, well done, great career, let's go and have a beer.
And we once again wish Jonathan Davies the best in the daytime. Thank you.
A few months later, at the age of only 34, Karen passed away. She was the pillar of strength behind Jonathan's success, and now she had gone. He had offers to keep playing, but Jonathan now had to be mother as well as father to 3 children under the age of 10. His future lay with his family.
I was kind of prepared for it better because of my loss of my dad. But I think then that although you're in the public glare, bereavement is a very private thing. That was the key, is being strong, putting a public profile in place, but then a different one when you're private. So how you cope with it is trying to get on with it as normal as you can, and make sure that being the dad and I suppose the man of the house, you just have to keep it going as normal as possibly. And that's I did go off the rails a little bit, I suppose. In the drinking stakes, but hey, sometimes you cope with it that way. But the discipline of TV schedules and kids going to school was the key to keeping me on that straight and narrow.
Jonathan has never forgotten the support and care provided by Velindre Hospital. And with Jonathan as president of the charity, fundraising has soared £7 million in the last 5 years.
For me, it was just the fact that, I wanted to support it. I knew what people went through. I know how fantastic, the medical staff were. And, I just want to raise the money to make it easier for whoever is so unfortunate to go through it.
To mark his 50th birthday, Jiffy embarked on his biggest challenge, leading 50 people, including many former Welsh skippers and internationals, on a grueling fundraising bike ride across California, starting in the Yosemite National Park down to San Francisco.
I think it was absolutely fantastic the way they've responded to it. Everyone's mucked in. Everyone's helped each other. We had a great banter over dinner. And when we're cycling together, and I think everyone's gelled very good. So it's a great bunch of people.
With temperatures over 100 degrees and sleeping on hard grounds under canvas, even the rugby stars found it tough. But Jiffy kept them going.
Hang on in there, son, hang on in.
There's only one Jiffy, isn't it? And his little speeches around the campfire in the evening are fantastic. He's got a great sense of humour, and I think everybody's really enjoying his company.
Tom, which way are you hanging?
He's 50 going on 18, Jiff, isn't he? I think fair play to him. He's been considering he is 50. He's been putting it in this week. He's been brilliant fun. He's lighting up the week for everybody. He's the man who's headed up the whole thing, and we've hung on his coattails really. So he's been phenomenal. Encouraging everybody and just being himself. So it's just been for me, he was my hero growing up really. So it's been a privilege to spend the week with him.
After nearly 400 kilometres, the group approached the emotional finishing line of the Golden Gate Bridge. Everyone involved was raising money for loved ones who suffered from cancer or in memory of those who died from the disease. And the finish triggered outbursts of emotion and relief. This event alone had raised nearly £500,000.
It's been a great journey, very, very emotional at the end. I don't cry very often, but it's been amazing.
The care and support we give to people is over and above what the NHS provides as a base, and Jonathan's input makes a massive contribution to that. And from our point of view, John was known and has been known as a hero to hundreds of thousands of people for when he was playing rugby, but to us he's purely a hero as a man, simply because of what he's done for Velindre.
The difference playing at Since the mid-1990s, demand for Jiffy the commentator with his quick wit and sharp rugby brain has grown steadily.
He possesses the well, I suppose I've known him since school days, and he never tires of reminding everybody the fact that I was head boy when he was a couple of years younger, and used to throw him out to the corridors lunchtime. But he hasn't changed at all. He was a cheeky youngster in school, and I think he's a cheeky chappy now as a commentator. And I think that's one of his endearing qualities. That's why people like him so much. But actually, when it comes down to the game itself, he is incredibly sharp. He just sees things so quickly, and he can then get on to our technical people and decide what replays he wants, where he wants it played from, and he can see in an instant why a try has happened or why a move has failed or anything else. He is definitely one of the quickest I've ever seen and ever worked with.
Today, Jonathan is not only a leading national commentator, but an expert in both codes, union and league. A unique dual role.
You ought to call it as you see it, because one thing about the rugby public supporters, they're very knowledgeable. So if you don't say what you think, you lose your credibility. Well, you know, you've lost your support, I suppose.
Second row, and then they got the 3-on-2, and the two boys.
Tries to keep up with the modern trends in the game. I think that's a really important thing. Because if you're not involved in the game for 2 years, you know, things move on quickly, both in league and in union.
Jiffy's great as a commentator because he does understand the game, even though the likes of him and myself retired many years ago. I think when you're a skillful rugby player, as he was, and he not only did he excel in rugby union, but he got to the top in rugby league, and that takes a special quality in an individual to be able to do that. And as a commentator, he can almost see a little bit into the future, and I think that's a skill also.
While Jiffy's acute analysis, assisted by modern on-screen graphics, explains the game to millions, it's his passion that, for many, makes matches come alive.
And the centre, you'd be saying, get on my shoulder now. What are you doing out there? Get on my shoulder.
We're talking about being out there.
But Wales are doing badly, beaten in all 4 autumn internationals, extending a bad losing streak as the year ends. With the 2013 Six Nations tournament imminent, Wales look to have a thin chance of successfully defending their championship title.
Fun and games, day hasn't ended. Maybe with Wales losing today, it's a good time to get out to Cardiff.
So Jiffy is on the move again, a late-night flight to commentate on another international the following day. Happy to travel, knowing the family and home are in good hands. Because after finding a new career in broadcasting, Jonathan unexpectedly found a new love.
I'm very fortunate that I met a fantastic girl, Helen. She was, we met, and I thought, well, who knows what'll happen, and then we're going to be married 10 years this year now, and to take 3 kids on board at such a young age was amazing, and Helen has been the power behind my success in the last 10 years.
Jonathan Davies, this is your life.
In 2003, more public celebrations followed with Jiffy's This Is Your Life. His family joined him in the limelight while his mum, sister and stepdad looked on, all enjoying Jonathan's achievement and recognition. He'd become a national treasure, not only a great former player, but a great broadcaster, a personality in his own right, a celebrity with his own chat show on S4C.
If you'd have told me that I'd be having my own show on S4C in Welsh language, I'd have said you're off your head. But it's one thing. I'm adaptable, I suppose, and I think I've got a good sense of humour.
Pen funny. 1, 2, 3.
The first mistake they did, they named the show Jonathan, so they stuck with me now. But the viewing figures are good and people seem to enjoy it, and so if it continues, it continues. But it's certainly been successful, and I've enjoyed it.
Now, the established media personality Jonathan, at the age of 50, knows he's there to be challenged by new stars.
Cwpan y byd blwyddyn nesaf, mae sôn bod ti'n mynd i retirio wedyn. Ti'n meddwl beth ti'n mynd i wneud ar ôl retirio?
Lle gen ni, swydd fel ti, Shane Show.
It's the same in life as it is in sport, and there's always people trying to knock you off your perch. So, you know, you've got to do your job, you know, as well as you possibly can. And because I know there's a lot of boys retiring now, and they'll want new faces on television. But no, I'm not ready to give my position on the television up yet.
So it's back in front of the nation and more than 10 million viewers around Britain for the finale of the Six Nations Championship. Remarkably, Wales have turned things around, won 3 games on the road, and could clinch the title if they beat by 7 points at in-form England, going for a Grand Slam. They hardly come more highly charged than this. A decider in Cardiff with Jiffy trying to keep a lid on his emotions.
Rampant Wales. Bigger. Lee Halfpenny. Jimmy Roberts just in Tipperick. Cuthbert outside him. Tipperick. Tipperick. Still going to Cuthbert. Cuthbert's second try. Wales are storming to the title.
Just watch the brilliance of that Tipperick. We run it on. He's in front of the player who receives the ball, but just watch him. He reads the play, he steps back, and then he gets away.
I try and control my emotions when I'm commentating or when I'm in studio because, you know, everyone knows I'm Welsh and I want Wales to win. And when Wales are doing well, you know, it makes my job so much easier and enjoyable.
Wales stormed to victory, a record-breaking win over England, clinching the title for the 2nd year running.
And the Six Nations trophy is lifted high by the victorious Welsh team, who are RBS Six Nations champions for 2013.
With Wales awash in celebration, Jiffy's delight does the rounds on Facebook.
He's a fun-loving, happy-go-lucky guy who's got a great family. I think he must have been a hypnotist in his part of his past life, because to get a wife as gorgeous as Helen at his age is, you know, something incredible, but he's managed it.
The biggest achievement of my whole career and my life so far is the fact that I'm so proud of you know, the family, the kids, and Helen. She's been a great mother and a great wife, and we wanted another one to bind the family together, and a miracle happened and little Molly came along, and now rather than have 3, I've got 4 beautiful kids, and it's been fantastic. My dad died when he was 44. I've decided that I think I'm going to live till 90. I told my kids when I was 45, it's half time. It might be a pain in the arse to everyone at that time, but there we are. My goal is to be around when I'm 90 years of age.
I don't remember when we wild and young. All that's faded in the memory. I feel like somebody I don't know. Are we really who we used to be? Am I really who I was? All the lights will draw you in, and the dark will bring you down.